Welcome everybody to the RSN podcast. This is best and worst gimmicks. Today we're here to discuss the best and worst gimmicks of the WWE. I'm with my man Rich.
What's up, guys?
With my man Nick from PWO, Pro Wrestling Opinion.
What's going
Best
on?
Site. Yep. Best site for all the up to date latest news, reviews, latest happenings, all that, everything. We had our last podcast for Rise and Fall of WCW, and it's crazy. A lot of people have watched it. A lot of people have done a lot of comments on it. Fantastic. We love to see your views. We love to see what you guys have to say. We love to see a lot of feedback, and it's wonderful, you know? It's great. How about you, Nick? How's PWO looking?
Everything's actually, everything's going up. A lot of people are checking out the most recent post, as of this conversation, which would be the review on Battleground 2015. Was a buzzworthy event, unless you've been under a rock, The Undertaker's back, he's out for revenge.
He's back.
We had a couple of other good matches, so, usually when a big return like that happens, a lot of interest gets generated, and it shows off in what we do. And we love each and every one of you guys that come out to check us out, and we just hope you stick around, because you got a lot more stuff coming.
Nick, how did the review for Beast in the East go?
Well, that was good. Pretty much everyone was expecting to tune in for a title change and a Kofi Kingston squash, and sure enough, that's what happened.
Wait, you're talking about the title change of Finn Balor beating Kevin Owens, right?
You mean?
Yep, that one. Really good match. If you haven't seen it, I definitely recommend you check it out. Probably a career performance thus far for Balor. He's come a long way since Japan, but in terms of his WWE NXT stint, probably his best performance to date. I'm sure he's going to do really good things as NXT champion. And
don't get used to seeing him as champ, because Dean Ambrose leaked on an interview by October, I believe. He said Finn Balor will be up on the main roster.
Oh, I'm not doubting that, definitely. But I also think at the same time you should also build up the NXT Championship. I mean, they've proven that they could bring the NXT Championship up. So it's just a matter of seeing what happens with that.
I like the whole Diva call-up. I think that's amazing.
There's elements of good and bad. Mostly good. The faction warfare thing seems a little silly to me, but at the same time, it creates a pretty good lineup of matches. I just think they're trying just a little bit too hard with it. I don't think they need to have all 9 of the women out for every one of their matches. It seems the format seems a little bad at the moment, but they got good stuff going, so I'm sure they'll come around for it.
Indeed. You can see that review online on PWO. You can also see our review. We had our review also on the RSN channel. Me and Rich, we compile our own review. It's on the YouTube page. We discussed, in depth about what was going on that night. We discussed, how we felt about it, what was going on, in our way in and our way out. It's the same point that Nick, same degree. We were all going through the same stuff. We all had the same views. So, we had on one side, Nick on his site with PWO with the written review, and we had us with the video review. So, you got two perspectives. You got to see what was there. This is what we had to offer, But, hopefully we get more reviews going on. I know we're trying to plan on getting a SummerSlam review. And also, possibly, in the near future, we're probably going to have a bunch of other podcasts, but that's still debatable. But
we want to try and get a preview of just the Lesnar Taker rivalry.
Yes, we wanted to get that, but again, if you guys have any topics, if you guys think that we should do anything, please leave anything in the comments. Subscribe, comment. We got a Facebook page, all that. But now let's get down to the stuff, the real nitty-gritty. So, gimmicks. Let me ask you guys something. Gimmicks. Whenever we see a gimmick, it's kind of like something it defines a character. A character gimmick, same thing. It defines somebody for the rest of their career. They change, they come, things happen, things change, injuries, all that. people come in and out. There's always something going on. They're paired with something. Do you feel that the gimmick makes the person, or the person has to make the gimmick?
The person has to make the gimmick, and
I agree.
it varies on what exactly it is. I mean, as we've seen in pro wrestling, there's been a whole variety of different gimmicks, but I feel like the best person can pull it off no matter what they're given. Like, he's not in my pick, it might be one of yours, I don't know, but I'd point to a guy like Cody Rhodes. If you look at that guy, he's had about 5, 6 different gimmicks, kind of like an evolution of his character. And I'd say he's like a prime example of someone who could take something no matter what and make it work on his own, abilities.
And on the opposite side, you have someone like Randy Orton. Doesn't really have a gimmick, neither heel or face. He just plays himself perfect. So he's the man with no gimmick, but is amazing at it.
At the same time, though, I think, he kind of does have a purpose. Like when he had the whole Legend Killer thing, and then the Viper. It's not a gimmick, but it's sort of like a personality. Some kind of characteristic that's attached to him. So, while it's not a gimmick, elements of what makes the gimmick work is what, is what's drawn to Orton, and that's why it actually works, because he plays it off so well.
Yeah, you guys are right to a degree, about the evolution of a person as they develop in their career, as things change, as things, happen to them, and as the environment changes. But, you guys are right about, totally right. A character evolves. As it evolves, things change, things happen, But, you guys had really good, it was like opposite sides of the argument. It's like, okay, we had Cody Rhodes, Randy Orton, 2 different personalities, and looking at what corporate, probably looking at what WWE, like the writing staff, what they're looking at, we can only speak as fans. We could probably say that they're probably testing them in a way. Do you feel like they're being tested sometimes and saying, okay, you're okay, so let's see, we'll give you the gimmick terrorizing, because you look like a bad motherfucker. Let's just go ahead and give you a gimmick like that. Do you think that's changed now? Because now they're not really giving anyone gimmicks anymore. They're telling them, okay, it's more in tune with who they really are. Like, would you guys agree with that?
I would agree with that, except there's King Barrett, R-Truth, who's kind of parading around with the robe. Who else do we got? We got the New Day, which I love their act, but essentially they're like condescending motivational speakers.
I can't stand that gimmick.
So, there's not as much of it, but, I think it still has its place. So I think we'll still continue to see it happen. It's just a matter of, who could rock what gimmick.
And do you think they're ever being tested in a way? Like, do you ever feel like it's a way for them to, for the staff to throw them a challenge and say, oh, let's see if this guy can do this, and then see if he can get in tune with his own character. Because, you see characters like that all the time. Like, if you look way, way back, at the developmental, all the guys down there in NXT have something that's in tune with their personality. I was seeing in the documentary that ESPN did on E60 with NXT and its evolution.
Yep.
They were trying to, incorporate people, and there was a high emphasis, if you ever seen it, that they were trying to make people in tune with who they actually are. They weren't actually going for, let's just give you this and see what you can do with that. But,
like Corey Graves.
Yeah. we didn't really have a time, we really didn't get a chance to see him fully develop, but, it looked like they were kind of hinting something, saying that, okay, this is what he might be, and this is what he might go down. Because if you ever looked at it, whenever we look at storylines, whenever we look at heel turns, face turns, we always look at the gimmick. We always see, okay, where can this go? How can it develop someone's character?
And how long can it last?
Indeed. If you've seen, I'm talking way back. Look at, for example, Eva Marie. if you've seen her, I mean, if you've seen all the stuff that she's doing on Instagram, and all the stuff,
I think she's gonna be a monster when she comes back.
I disagree. I mean, if you see her personality, she has the personality, and she has the attitude probably that, fuck this business, I'm using this as a stepping stone. And I mean, a lot of people have said that no, this isn't a stepping stone. This is the rocket ship. You're on the fucking rocket ship. You're going up.
See, that's where I could disagree with you though, Sal.
Mm-hmm.
I think when she comes back, which will be tomorrow on NXT, I think she's gonna play the ultimate diva heel, being the fact everyone hates her, but proving to everyone that she's been training with Brian Kendrick and making her one of the top athletic divas. I think they could interpret that into her character to make her one of the best diva heels, to show she's amazing now.
Yeah, I understand that, but as far as development goes, I mean, you gotta think when WWE's hiring someone and looking at a gimmick, they're really actually investing in someone. They're actually investing in a product. So do they really want someone that's that can only stay one character at one point, or do they want someone that's flexible? Because let's say the next big thing comes in, and he's the same thing as Eva. Let's say for example, Eva's the heel. Let's say another great heel comes. Let's say a CM Punk, a female CM Punk comes out. What's gonna happen then?
That'll be the day.
That would never happen, but in imaginary world, okay, I see what you're saying.
That might happen. I'm telling you, but there is a possibility. There might be someone that is much more flexible with the way that they can be. They can be heel, they can be face, and WWE will look at them and say, hey, this is much easier. We don't have to deal with trying to develop them. We don't have to give that much work. So I mean, they're probably looking for the easiest way, but also the one that's the most effective. But as far as I see Eva, it's just I don't really think as her attitude goes, she's there's nothing there to develop. I mean as far as in-ring skills, she could do whatever promo, they can do that, but character, that's kind of a question to me. That's why I kind of pulled out.
But time will tell. It starts tomorrow.
We'll see what happens. Maybe tomorrow, maybe but we'll have to see what happens.
But if anything, she does have a great trainer though. Spanky, true. Brian Kendrick, amazing athlete.
Indeed, I agreed on that. Yeah, I mean Brian Kendrick was a great list of accomplishments, great superstar.
It's just injuries sent him back.
Indeed, they should. I think that the way that they've had it, he's prone to injuries. He's been in the wrong place at the wrong time. But I mean, we've had best gimmicks. Some of the best gimmicks that ever arised were people that are actually in tune with their character, or they were able to divert from who they really are. And truly, it's like they wear a mask, and they can actually stay that person and then move away. But I mean, if you ever notice, some of the people with the best gimmicks have gone into Hollywood, have gone into other realms of entertainment, and some of them have really good potential. So I mean, that's up to us. We'll have to see. So right now, what we're gonna do, we're gonna discuss the best gimmicks that we think that are in the WWE. Start with you, Rich.
Well, are we going WWE history?
Yeah, WWE history. Yeah.
Okay.
I'd say all time, or what in your opinion?
All right. Starting off the list with my best gimmick, I go back to early 90s. He just came back. Obviously, that gives away the answer. The Dead Man. Undertaker. Any of his gimmicks, I find were the best in that era.
Well, let's dissect his history. He debuted in 1990 in Survivor Series. He was playing the $1 Million Man's what was it? Another man in the group. He was like that, that figure.
He was like the muscle.
He was they introduced him as the $1 Million Man. I don't know what it's called.
Well,
I don't think I'm thinking of a term.
Well, Brother Love actually brought him in.
Really?
Yeah, Brother Love brought him in.
But wasn't Ted DiBiase that he orchestrated the whole thing, right? That's the storyline supposedly.
Yeah, but building up to that, Brother Love started it.
True. I mean, if you've seen his career, he's had multiple managers. With Paul Bearer,
That was the
Brother
best
Love.
one he had, though.
I mean, the way that they had it, it was, do you think that he did it all by himself, or, like, would the manager actually have helped him, Because if you've seen for a significant while, he actually had Paul Bearer on his side, and that's how he really got over it. People looked at him and said, oh, this guy is something, damn, like, he got this creepy old guy with him. Fuck, damn, we got some attention to him. Or do you think, like, him by himself was pretty good? Like, for example, let's compare him in the Attitude Era with Bearer
To
and
the
then
American Badass.
the American Badass, or let's say, how about, I say Ruthless Aggression Era Deadman,
Well, he knows how to switch with the times. That's the main thing.
Yeah, he can keep up with whoever it is.
Yeah, I mean, the Attitude Era, he had, like, the corporate ministry. He was at the top of the card, I think he had a world championship run, a brief one, albeit, but, he was up there fighting with Austin. I don't know if you remember SummerSlam 98. That was pretty much the top of the card. Kind of ironic that almost 20 years later that Taker's going to be main eventing SummerSlam again in the same arena. So, it's just funny. Not the same arena, but, close to it, this time in Brooklyn. But
the same state.
It all kind of comes around full circle. But then the Ruthless Aggression Era, it was also a kind of a different step up for the Taker character, because he was evolving, from the badass to, slowly more of a biker. He just had, like, kind of a heelish edge to him. He didn't really care who or what came at him. He would just take you on that last ride, and, that was it. That's a testament to, what's made Taker work over the years, and that's been, evolving his character. Now,
he was able to adapt. I mean, you're right. Yeah, I'm sorry. Yeah, what were you saying?
Well, the only bad thing in that situation would be the fact that, well, hold on, I'm actually getting a phone call. Sorry about this one.
All right, we'll do an edit.
Sure.
Let's go.
Hello? Yeah, but I was saying, the thing with Taker...
I'm doing a conversation.
Oh yeah, I seen that jab at Owens, man.
Those they got tickets.
Yeah, man.
Nah, man, Owens is a shit.
Fuck Owens.
I'm still mad what they did. Fuck Finn Balor.
Owens is going back down to the mid card.
You know why?
And I'm back.
Because WWE's fucking him in the ass right now. Seriously.
Fuck Owens.
We're back.
Fuck Finn Balor.
Fuck Owens. Fuck Owens. Fuck Android.
Owens was Owens back in the lower mid, the upper mid card is kind of where he was to begin with. He wasn't even supposed to be on the main roster for more than like 2 months. It was supposed to end at like I heard the end of June. Obviously, we're almost to August. He's still in the main event. He was on Raw's main event. So I think they're just trying to shuffle him around. But,
that was a great main event though last night.
It was.
I disagree. I mean, they really didn't do anything to the character. All they did was focus on Taker and Brock, which I think was a great angle. But I think they kind of fucked up in the way they booked it with the Divas and everything. I mean, having one Divas match, and I think that would have been a good way. The way that they did it, they kind of reduced the focus on the major, most of the major angles.
Sort of.
I mean, yeah, it's Well, I mean, let's get back to Taker.
Yeah.
I mean, Taker. I mean, he had a great ability to adapt. I mean, a lot of people say a lot of wrestlers they've said with their testament they've said that he's probably one of the hardest workers. He's willing to give back. But I mean, to see him, he's really adapted over the years. I mean, to your point, that's what makes a really good gimmick, to see if someone can really develop in that character. Because you don't want to keep seeing the same thing over and over, regurgitated or restyled into something. Because eventually,
like
it will suffice. Something's gonna happen where it's gonna be like, we want something new.
Perfect person, Big Show, doesn't really have a gimmick. He's just thrown into anything.
And he's able to adapt. I mean, I think that's what WWE really looks for in a great gimmick. And I mean, that's a great, perfect choice. Taker, he's always going ahead and coming out with the greatest stuff. He's able. If they put him in any situation, he can make it look good. He can be entertaining if he wanted to. He can go ahead and be thick if he wanted to. He could be this bad, scary motherfucker. Everybody looking at me like, what the fuck? Like, It's crazy. But I mean, as far as best gimmicks, person, I think that's probably one of the best gimmicks. And I mean, we go back to that word, evolve and adapt. I think this character has evolved and adapted over the years a lot. This is a very controversial character too. I'm talking, of course, about Goldust. I think Goldust is probably one of the best gimmicks in WWE, simply over the fact that he can bring a great response out of people. Because if you've seen how how it was back then, people were looking at him saying, what's going on? There's something really not right here. This guy's kind of just doing all these things and everything. It's not cool. The way he was acting, and they actually accused him of stuff, and he kind of got into that, and it got to his head a little bit. But I mean, that's where it was like that line of reality, and the wrestling world where it was just gimmicks, storytelling. I think that really did get into something, that really, if it really gets into somebody, that's how you know that they're really invested into that. I mean, if WWE came up to you and said, okay, this is going to be your character, you're going to be, flamboyant,
kind of girlish.
Yeah, feminine, femme fatale, but still a guy, how would you react to that? How would you say, would you be comfortable doing that, knowing that you got a son, you got, your family watching you, people are watching everything, He
has his daughter to watch this. He has his wife, who was in his gimmick, basically.
Yeah, I mean, his family got really tied up into it. That's another thing.
His daughter Dakota was actually at a lot of the Raw tapings also, while he was doing this character.
I mean, yeah, when we take a look back at all the best gimmicks and what really built them, when they involve family, that really does, make something really good. Like, for example, when you see Rey Mysterio and Eddie Guerrero. Eddie Guerrero, fantastic wrestler, fantastic entertainer.
And they brought in Dominic and Rey's wife.
I mean, that was a pretty intense angle. That was uncomfortable, but, something that tied people emotionally. The same thing with Goldust, he had some kind of emotional, attachment, because you've seen what's happening in his personal life. You've seen what was happening in him, in the wrestling world. But, to see that was something that...
And especially when they incorporated Cody into the picture and Dusty.
I mean, and, to go back to the evolution and, adapting, he really did over the years, He later grew on into becoming a veteran, and look in the Ruthless Aggression era. Look at him in, like right now, recently, with the Rhodes, with Cody, with Stardust, all this. He's able to adapt and help further other talent, too. And, I mean, with Booker, for example. Booker and, Book Dust, they were really, really entertaining.
That was a fun team.
They were a really fun team. You had this guy that was acting kind of fruity, and you're looking at him like, what the hell is this guy doing? Like,
I was actually listening. Well, I was actually watching the interview he did with Howard Stern, Goldust.
Oh, that was priceless.
When he had a stutter and all that.
He played it off really well.
He actually put his character on the interview, the Goldust character, which I was like, wow, that's someone who's actually faithful to the company to actually bring his character out of the business.
I mean, he was very invested in his character, too. I mean, you could run down a whole long list. Ultimate Warrior, Macho Man, Hulk, Taker. These guys were all invested in their characters so much that they would portray it in their real life. Most notably, Ultimate Warrior, Macho. There were these guys that were able to, tap into them. All this. They were able to go through that, and they brought into their personality.
Taker never broke character off camera either.
Never. And even at UFC had this presence where it was like...
The thing with Brock, right?
Yeah.
I think that actually started that rivalry.
I think that we should make a topic about this, and it is very, very interesting. We should.
I won't mind doing that for the next podcast.
I agree. What about you, Nick?
It's an idea. Getting to my pick, right?
Yes, we're ready.
Right. So, well, I just want to give my thoughts on Goldust. I think what was most important about his character was that in the time of the Attitude, well, just prior to the Attitude Era, but I think he had a hand in playing in terms of pushing the envelope, in terms of, sexual innuendo and the way things came across. He was very good with that kind of thing. He had his own look. I mean, the blonde wig, the face paint. His manager, Marlena, she would sit in the director's chair with the big cigar. It was all just very different, and he kind of just made it work. And then the guy could wrestle, too. The only thing is, I can't recall a match, where, that really made him a star. I feel like the feuds he was in were pretty notable, but, there's not really one breakout performance from him. That's the only thing with him about me. But going to my pick, again, this guy he derives from the Attitude Era, but he really came alive in, I'd say, around the 2004-2005 mark. He was pretty much an up-and-comer, former tag team wrestler, evolved into the upper card, and then had a run with the World Championships. If you're not sure who I'm talking about, look no further than the rated R superstar. That would be Edge. In my opinion, he's always had the look. He definitely had the skills. He's a high flyer. He could cut a promo like insane. I personally feel like his heel gimmick as the rated R superstar, when he had the family stable with him, he was on top of SmackDown. He pretty much made SmackDown a can't miss show.
And he's great at stealing wives.
Yep, his facial expressions were top notch. He knew how to sell a moment. And this guy just pretty much knew how to evolve his character. I mean, he started out with Christian, then he was on his own for a little bit. And then he started taking on this kind of hardcore attitude kind of thing. And he became, Mr. Money in the Bank. He was banking on being an ultimate opportunist. And then he evolved to the rated R era, which started, bringing back ratings. So his characters evolved, like, here and there. And obviously, towards the end, he turned into a face. I personally think as a heel, he was better off. He was more of a draw that way. But eventually the fans, they just love him too much that they can't boo him. So when that happens, you'd eventually have to turn the guy. He still made it run, though. He's cut his hair as of late, but it doesn't take away from his look. He's still a very good promo. His name's still around in WWE programming. If you watch the network, he's still on there. He appeared on Raw earlier this year.
He's actually going to be in a WWE movie, they said, very shortly.
Yeah, he's, the sky's the limit for him. It kind of sucks that, that too much damage in the ring pretty much stopped his career, like, dead short. I don't want to know, like, how, close it was to being a scary situation. It's unfortunate, but at the same time, it opens the doors for other guys to come through, and they all have his, his kind of ability, his kind of drive, but he knew how to make a match work. And
he would still be around now if it wasn't for his neck injury.
He would still be around. His feud with Taker was classic. He had a lot of money feuds right there. I think he's probably the one guy I could watch John Cena wrestle and, not really bat my eyes away from the product. He was a damn good heel. Another example of a guy who's evolved over time to become something more. And, while he's lightened up on the rated R gimmick, it's still attached to his name. And when you think of Edge, arguably that nickname comes to mind. So, that's why I'm going to go with Edge.
That's not a bad pick at all.
Great pick.
I loved Edge as a heel. No matter who he was in a rivalry with, it was gold. And even though he's retired, he still does stuff in the company with his wife, Beth Phoenix, which I didn't even know they were even together.
Yep.
But Edge, one of the greatest of all time.
I kind of wish he was on the commentary team.
Yeah.
I think, yeah. I mean,
for the fact he's great on the mic, that would have been perfect.
Yeah. I think he should be incorporated into programming more. I mean, if you look at he got injured by Brodus Clay, of course. Tyrus now wrestles for TNA and
GFW.
GFW too, but that dickhead just messed everything up. So now everyone's like, wow, they say like, oh, screw you. But I mean, ever since that happened, everybody was like, come on, man, that's not cool. But
everyone knows the real injury is because of the spears.
I mean, it could be the spears, it could be the spearing off the 15-foot ladder, the countless trauma and everything over in the ring over the years. But I think I mean, he made a really good decision, and that was a good decision for him, and it brought him some longevity. Because I mean, if you've seen some people like Kurt Angle, WWE was trying to cut him down and say calm down, you shouldn't be doing this, you should actually preserve your life now. This isn't good, this is dangerous, and he kind of batted away from it, saying, I still love this. I love wrestling. I'm gonna keep on doing it.
Well, now look at him. He has a tumor in his neck.
And that's how severe it gets. You're having paralysis. Next thing you know, you're gonna have paralysis. You can't feel your limbs. You can't feel nothing.
He's gonna be paralyzed within the next couple of years. I know it sounds horrible saying that about someone, but it's true. He's gonna be paralyzed in the next. I give it 2 or 3 years.
I mean, it's painful to see that. It's painful. Like, it's. I mean, the passion, you gotta love that. But at the same time, you're kind of concerned. It's too much, and it gets too extreme. It's like, you gotta calm down and actually consider your life. But I mean, Edge, great personality, great talent. You can go ahead and put a bunch of seats in the house, no problem, and sell a show out. But I mean, I think the way that WWE is trying to incorporate him, I think WWE should go another step further and try to incorporate him more. But I mean, you've seen.
He had no problem putting talent over.
You definitely can. I think you definitely. How about this? Let me ask you guys this. Edge, is he Seth Rollins, is he the new Edge?
I could definitely see the comparison. He had his own stable surrounding him, his world champion, the long hair, the high flying. He's close to the top of the card. Arguably has it in with management and the storylines. There's a lot of parallels to their characters. But I think the one thing that Edge has that Seth Rollins doesn't is you could buy Edge as a credible, threat as a heel. Rollins, you can't really do that with because he's done too much running away. He's kind of been a little portrayed too much as a coward to really be taken seriously. Okay, yeah, he's got a few clean wins, over guys like Dean Ambrose and Randy Orton, so on and so forth. That's kind of sold his reign as something, more than average. But at the same time, when it comes to the big fights, I just can't see it. I just don't see him on the same level as Edge. His promo skills have gotten a lot better, but I still don't think he could carry a promo segment on his own. He always needs some kind of help or some kind of support. But then again, he's still evolving as a character and as a wrestler on his own. And he's been around arguably, close to around maybe 10 years. So he's still got a lot of time left. But, where he's been at so far, it's been encouraging. So it's going to be interesting to see how far he gets. And I'm sure he can only get better from there. But as of right now, I wouldn't put him on the same level as Edge as far as a draw. Because right now he has the title, but when he loses that, the follow-up is going to be key. So that's going to be interesting to watch.
I agree with Nick.
I agree.
But it's like the same thing Nick just said. Once Seth loses the title, he'll be somewhere lost in the mix. Edge lost the title, he was still in the picture. He was still a relevant name to incorporate into a title run. Seth won't have that same effect.
I mean, yeah, it's just, I think it's just development, as we were talking before. Whenever you get a character, whenever you get a gimmick, so to say, you have to see it evolve, and you have to see it grow into something that's different, something that's new, something that's a transformation, not something that's just the same or something that's just enrooted and it keeps getting enrooted to the point where it's, okay, just the same bland stuff. you wanted to change, you wanted something, to move forward. I mean, with Seth, I think that he needs a little more time. Eventually, we'll see something. It's gonna be interesting again. You guys are right to see what's gonna happen. But
Edge
just how,
also, there was
yeah.
also never a match Edge had that was a horrible match. Seth has had a few already.
I mean, yeah, there's some cases where somebody carried over and they just helped them out, and then it wasn't actually him doing the match. But I mean, again, that's it might be the lack of experience, the lack of a lack of time, seeing him there. But I mean, yeah, only time will tell. But I mean, that goes into our other topic. So now we're gonna talk about the worst gimmicks. We already talked about the best gimmicks. The gimmicks that land people after their careers to movies, appearances on television shows, and all that great stuff. And I mean, that's probably the highest, the highest achievement anyone can get is that with their character, with what they've done, the work that they've done, they can become something different, something bigger, and they got opportunities there. Now we're gonna talk about probably the worst gimmicks. So, I mean, there's a lot of times where you're looking at TV, you're saying they could do this to this guy, they could do this with this guy, but what are they missing? Why are they not letting this guy grow? Why are they letting them do this? Why are they do it? And then next thing you know, you see them crumble and you see them slowly fade away to the point where they just you see them on WWE.com or some other site saying this person got released. But I mean, what in your minds, what do you think really brings a gimmick to a grinding halt?
The lack of charisma, the lack of fans.
No connection to the fans. I mean, fans aren't stupid. If they see something that isn't clicking, they're gonna react very negatively towards it. Sometimes you could see a reaction in of itself as a good thing, but when it's just a constant bad reaction, something has to be done. We've seen it this year with like Roman Reigns. We've seen it with New Day.
Very famous Fandango. Maybe you've seen Fandango, and a couple of years ago, he had the whole, everybody singing his theme. Yeah. Now, where do you see him? I mean, yeah.
I mean, it's unfortunate, but that
you have that one person.
WWE doesn't know when to change things up with guys, or when they do choose to do it, it's a little bit too late, and they can't really salvage what made that character work to begin with.
Like, look at Zack Ryder. Horrible gimmick, but the fans love him.
And that's because he got over on his own using YouTube, ironically enough.
I mean, it's a mixture of things when you're considering a character. I mean, we can all agree on that. It's not just what someone can do, but how in what ways, how can they make it new? How can they do something in a way that it's it's not just WWE's credit, but they can do on their own. But do you feel like some of the talents are limited now because we're entering this era where
it's the gimmick era now.
Yeah. I mean, they're dubbing it the reality era because there are no more heels, no more faces. There's no more of that old I'm gonna do this to you. None of this old shooting and stuff. None of this into the storyline OD gimmick. Fans are smarter. Everybody knows this. Do you feel like the talents are I mean, especially now, there's no heels and turn, no heels and faces, but yet, they say that there's no gimmicks either now. Do you guys agree with that? Do you guys feel that that's really limiting why people can't turn into things? Like if you see Seth, if you see Roman, that's why they're not, changing anymore, or their characters aren't going anywhere?
Not really. There still are gimmicks though.
Yeah, I kind of disagree with that one. Because if you look at NXT and how Triple H is running it, true, the characters are, essential to the people that play them. But everyone involved there kind of has their own thing that makes it work.
Like Enzo and Cass.
Yeah, like Enzo and Cass, they had charisma through the roof. What baffles me why they still haven't gotten a main roster call up. They could give the tag division a real shot in the arm that it really needs. But, they're essentially Italian loudmouths. You look at a guy like Finn Balor, he's got like a kind of like a bipolar personality. Solomon Crow's a hacker who, hacks into the programming.
You have Mojo Rawley,
Total Diva,
Baron Corbin.
Boss.
I mean, there's a list, yeah. I mean, but comparing the Attitude Era, where there's not that PG rating, where there's not that limit of, oh, you can't say that on TV, oh, you can't do that on TV. You can push the envelope, you can do something. Like, for example, Stone Cold, infamous figure, everybody knows he could do whatever, he could do whatever he wants. He could stick the finger, do this, do that. The Rock, he can insult people, say he's gonna shove something up someone's rectum or something, and that's entertaining. But I think now it's kind of harder now for the talent to actually grow, because if you see the position that they're being placed in, they have all these limitations on them. But I think they lost in their creativity, because they're probably just looking at how people did it before, and they're saying, hey, maybe I should do it like this, and then next thing they say, oh, I can't because.
Well, they lost it once Linda ran for Senate, and that brought the TV rating down.
I agree. I mean, that whole PG era completely made it into a Saturday night cartoon, But
that's basically what it is now.
I mean, that whole period was pretty bad, But I mean, yeah. So I mean, we'll talk about the worst gimmicks, Starting with Nick, what do you think is the worst gimmick in WWE history, or in your opinion?
Yeah. Well, when you go to a bad gimmick, I mean, there's so many of them. I mean,
there really is.
Even look in other companies as well. I'm gonna stick to WWE for this one. My head was almost dead set on going with Kerwin White, which was basically Chavo Guerrero denouncing his Hispanic heritage. But
oh my God, that was such a horrible one.
Yeah, that's not my pick though. Gonna point to his caddy, who we now, Nick Nemeth, who we now know as Dolph Ziggler, and where he started out from, which would be a group of male cheerleaders who were known as the Spirit Squad. Now, my problems with this mainly range to the fact that here you had 5 developmental characters who were almost as hot as could be. They came from OVW at a time when Paul Heyman was running it, and he created a lot of buzz. Kind of like with NXT right now. He had Johnny Jeter and one of the other top superstars, in a money feud. And Jeter was really primed for great things. People were really talking about Ken Doane, who was also an up-and-coming talent. He had a money leg drop, as you saw. And, once they brought these guys up, it was like, all right, great, really, really good news. But then you saw the gimmick, and...
Nick, I have a question about your pick.
Yeah.
Wasn't Dolph not supposed to be the big talent out of there? Wasn't it supposed to be like, what's his name?
It was supposed to
Kenny
be
Dykstra or something?
Yeah, it was supposed to be, and the name change. Don't even get me started on the name change. Like Ken Doane, that sounds like a kick-ass name. Like you can run.
That really does.
Kenny
That could be a
Dykstra,
perfect name.
Just not the same. It doesn't really roll off the tongue. There's no question that's why his singles run flopped. They were pretty much doomed from the start here. I don't know if they were victims of the DX, the PG DX revival from 2006. Though they made good rivals for that kind of thing, it kind of killed any momentum they would have had. The only one to really succeed from this was Dolph Ziggler, but I think it almost took about 5 years after that gimmick for him to really make any kind of place. And that was just based off his abilities alone. Even then, he took the Dolph Ziggler name from, I don't think much was supposed to happen from that, because he was basically the guy who went around shaking everyone's hand and introducing himself. He had to get over on his own. But it essentially murdered, the careers of, Ken Doane and Johnny Jeter. They've actually lost, they've moved on to other things. It's just unfortunate to see, what would have been done had they been brought up organically. I kind of think the whole Nexus angle from 2010 was kind of like a redo of that thing. They did it right then. A few names came around then, obviously they're still around now, so, that's a testament to how successful it was. Though their most notable angle was how they came up on Raw and pretty much just dismantled the show. But, I think the Nexus angle was kind of an attempt to redo the Spirit Squad angle,
But better.
Yeah. So, and I mean, their look, their gimmick was like super annoying. I mean, they were good at being like pesky heels, but it could only take you so far. And giving that kind of thing to a group of up and comers, you can't really look past it. Everyone's kind of slapped with that Spirit Squad, reminder when it comes to those five guys. I mean, I'm happy Ziggler's been able to move on from all that, but you can't say the same for the other four.
He probably regrets doing that gimmick too.
Probably. He was definitely under the radar in the group. I'd say Kenny was probably the leader there, which made sense, given that he was a hot name at the time. But, it didn't give him any momentum at the same time either when they disbanded.
I think, factions. That's right. I think, most of the factions that ever were made, especially if it's a faction that's more than 5 people. I mean, Vince, you said in the past that he doesn't like factions at all. He doesn't like them at all.
There's some exceptions to the 5 or more.
Yeah, I mean,
because there are a couple that did work out very, very well.
Yeah, there's many in history, but I mean, as of recently, like with factions, they really haven't worked. Like, I mean, you could exclude the Shield, you could probably exclude DX, all these, great, NWO, all these great tag teams. I mean, the Core, for example, that was
horrible.
That was horrible. Nexus that was just, I was looking at it, I was like, that's the worst time WWE had ever. What else? Spirit Squad, like you said, but I mean, there's a lot of gimmicks that just really, you look at them and they say, why did they give these people, this gimmick and have them go for this one cause when they could have, done something else with them, And that's really frustrating because, you look at that and you say, they're just really putting them on a bad road. I mean,
but then there was a couple that were horrible gimmicks that still worked out good, though.
I mean, in a way, it actually changed them and made them into something, greater for themselves. Because, you got to saw them break out and do something different than everyone else. And everyone looked at them and attention was on them. But, I mean, as far as, for example, my pick, I would say my pick for the worst gimmick, I would say would be a single superstar right now, Wade Barrett. Because if you've seen Wade Barrett, the way that he's gone, it's, I mean, he's so uncoordinated. It's so, they have no plan with him. They're just continually giving him something that's just, okay, here and there, it's just shuffling him around and stuff. And it's frustrating because, if you've seen him, he was in Nexus and stuff. He was doing something big there. And then next, he's the leader of that group. He broke out. Then he had the Core. That was like, okay, fine. He stepped down. Now he's this. And then he slowly crumbled down. And then when they had this whole thing with the bare knuckle brawler and bad news, to me that was just, I just looked at it, I was like, nah, that's not really doing anything for him.
I did like the bare knuckle brawler gimmick.
Yeah, that was good.
The bad news thing was when it started to kind of jump the shark for me.
I mean,
there's so much you could do with it.
Yeah, I mean, if you look at now, they're so uncoordinated with them now. First they call him Wade Barrett, then they said, no, let's call him Barrett. Then they said, no, let's call him Wade Barrett again. And now, like, you see them now,
let's call him Ben News. Now let's call him King Barrett.
Yeah, and now, I mean, now what you see him now is, he's, they said supposedly they're dropping the King Wade Barrett, now they're just doing King Barrett. I mean, to this point, all the fans are just looking at this saying, what are they really doing for this guy? How is this guy's career really mapped out? He hasn't evolved at all. He's jumping around, shuffling, here and there.
But the thing is, he is very talented. They just don't know what to do with him.
I mean, what I see, from my opinion, I see that there's gonna be a point where this gonna come up to him and said, we tried everything, we don't know what to do, we're gonna release you because we can't do this anymore. But I mean, to see, like, if you've seen all the stuff that he's doing extracurricularly, like, he's actually pretty good. He has a good personality. I gotta say that. But as far as in wrestling and seeing what he can do, we really can't tell. I mean, can he really break out and be, a personality that can really do something? I mean, he has a look. That's probably the only thing that's separating him, in my opinion. He got the body, he got everything. But what else can they give him? He got the promo skills, but what else are they gonna give him?
That's true.
Yeah, they booked him into a bad hole. They actually
really
had
did.
a good chance to drop the whole King thing, had he lost at Battleground, but they let him win. And I just have a bad feeling this is going to be like the story of his career these next few years or so.
I don't give him that much longer though.
He's not really emerging or really doing anything of substance. It's really a testament when the way he was brought up. He had a good look to him, good abilities. It just baffles me like what they've done with him since then. But hopefully, maybe management looks at what they have and can somewhat shift their way around it.
Hopefully they will. I mean, what will be really frustrating is if he becomes another Scotty Goldman. If he becomes, I mean, at least he's not another Scotty Goldman. He's not another Chris Harris. Whatever the gimmick they gave him. They're not. He's not another Caval. He's not another. Like Weather Stars didn't. They gave him one chance and they completely dropped him.
There's a few.
I'm thinking.
But Kamal was the big one because look what he became after that.
Yeah, I mean, he was the Derek Bateman. Another one, Derek Bateman. Like, for example, Derek Bateman, Caval, Chris Harris. What else did I say? Who else? I keep thinking, who else?
Drew Galloway.
I mean, they gave these guys one chance. They put them out and they're saying, this guy's the future. He's the next big thing. And then the next 3 months, oh, you're released. Sorry, we don't have nothing for you. That's just frustrating. It wastes time.
I know. I admit I actually watched an episode of TNA last week.
What is TNA?
It was horrible.
What is this garbage? What is TNA?
It was horrible, but there was one match that actually caught my eye. It was Ethan Carter III versus Drew Galloway, also known as Derek Bateman versus Drew McIntyre. It was a great fucking match. It was beautifully worked.
The only problem was that EC3 just won the championship, and you couldn't really buy Galloway really winning it. I think if they had made it like a few months later, it could have been something people could really invest. But I think it was just an excuse to have Galloway in the main event. It was a good match, but I just feel like
it was
they're doing the wrong thing with EC3 because the way he emerged was being like this
like silver spoon,
Yeah. He was never like a coward and just looking for the easy way out like this whole time, and then suddenly he wins the championship, the biggest accomplishment to date, and you can't even take his character seriously. And it just baffles me what TNA is doing right now.
I think it was just a good match because both of them were titled the future of the WWE, and then both released.
Yeah, I think Drew was known as the chosen one. Jeff Jarrett was given that name, and I think Drew was. And then it was who else? Derek Bateman was an NXT winner, and they thought, he's gonna be really entertaining, and then they dropped the ball. I think it's the fact that it's politics probably too. There are some people that are in the upper office, like corporate office. They probably just look at certain people and they say, I don't like this guy, simply because of the fact I don't like this guy. I could name a really good, probably someone who's probably doing that all the time. Kevin Dunn. Look at that dickhead. He's probably just looking up and saying, I don't like this guy.
He doesn't have the look.
He doesn't have
the look.
And that's why
then you have someone like Mason Ryan who has the look, who isn't talented at all.
Batista look-alike, you could do something with that, but what do? They just, we're not having this guy. I mean, it's frustrating,
Well, speaking of Mason Ryan, that leads to my pick for the worst gimmick.
Yes, indeed.
My worst gimmick happens to be someone who was very big coming up in the early 2000s. He was in a great faction, which had the past, the present, and two of the future. But my pick for the character was the last 2 years of this guy's career, Batista.
Why Batista?
He had the whole prima donna character in the last year or two of his career. Like when he came back at the Royal Rumble, he was just a prima donna.
I disagree. I mean, Batista's a great talent, I think. I mean, he's gone into.
No, I'm not doubting his talent. I just didn't like the whole prima donna gimmick they gave him.
I think it fit him because I mean, he was supposed to be this dickhead, this guy that was just brass and things that he's a shit. Like if you compared him to a real life guy in the world right now, he'd be Kanye West. And I think that's what they were trying to go for back in the day. They were trying to make him the Kanye West, the dickhead, the guy that just it's a dick naturally. But I mean, to a testament, I think they could have varied it. They could have done something different with that. They kind of just laid it out and said, okay, this is what you're gonna be done.
But just the fact he quit twice.
Yeah, I mean, they didn't give him any any fluid motion. They just went ahead and just said, all right, fine, let's just make it rock. That's it, done. But I mean, he quit twice. As he said, where does it go from here? Like, if he were to come back tomorrow, would people take him seriously? Would people actually look at him and say, oh, this guy is something we can invest in?
They won't say that, but being the fact he's one of Triple H's good friends, he'll be thrown into like the main event picture right away, like he was last time.
See, that's another. I mean, that's another thing. People, they have that. A lot of people have the misconception. They have that conception that he's good with the upper echelon. Why should we have this guy? Have this in a certain way. I mean, to a degree, I think. The way that the situation that he's put in, like I was saying before, sometimes when you're put in a certain situation, you're really limited in what you can do. So I think
it's like everyone says though, when you get a job, it's not what you know, it's who you know.
True, I agree. I agree to that. What do you think, Nick? Batista has the worst gimmick.
Sort of, not really. It depends on kind of. As a muscle-bound guy, like in Evolution, I mean, you can't even argue that he was part of the foundation of that group because everyone kind of had their own role in it. There's been elements to his character that have worked for him that he's taken with him, but at the same time, he's not really the most convincing promo. His ring skills are kind of limited. It takes a lot of power moves for him to put on a good match. At the same time, can't really call a really breakout performance from him. And then I don't even want to talk about his 2014 return because if management thought fans were going to get behind that, there's no question why they went towards Daniel Bryan.
I think they took it so. What they did was, I think they generalized too much and they generalized heavily. They believed in that generalization and they made it so that it was something that defined them completely. That was something that really made them. That okay, like I think they were just thinking that okay, they're gonna bring Batista back. Oh my God, he's coming back after 4 years. Oh, that's gonna be big. Holy shit, like oh my God, he's back. This guy was he was the flag, the flag holder of the WWE. Oh my God, man, this is like this is the Austin Rock, Cena, Cena Rock. I mean, no, Cena, Batista, Rock, Austin. Oh my God. But then, they generalized too much to the point where they said, okay, this guy's gonna sell tickets. Let's just have him win. And then next thing you know, people, I think he needed more time to develop. Because if you remember, he came back, I think, 1 or 2 weeks before the pay-per-view.
He came back 2 weeks before the Rumble.
I mean, does that give you time to actually develop, to actually make him believable? Or do you think, they kind of...
If he would have came back the night of the Rumble as a surprise person, people probably would have not been as pissed of him winning the Rumble, though.
I agree.
Just for the fact he came back 2 weeks before and said, oh, I'm entering the Rumble. And then, boom. Everyone was like, okay, he's winning the Rumble.
I think, I agree. I mean, it's always worked for him when he was a surprise return. I mean, remember his return back in, I remember, he had that injury in 2007 with Henry. Henry injured him. And then next thing you know, he had that torn quad, I think it was, or something. And, he came back and he had this whole big feud with Henry. And everybody started noticing him. They're saying, yo, this guy's fucking crazy. It's real good. Like, they actually brought, and they made him believable. And then when they put him in the title picture with Taker, and he has some great matches with that, and people love that. But I think again it's the circumstance, the environment, what's going on, and how can you really build a character when you're supposed to fight 2 weeks? Everybody has already the notion that this guy's gonna win, and you're gonna give him the plate. So basically, they're thinking that okay, he has a silver spoon in his mouth. Why the fuck should we believe this guy when we know that this is gonna happen?
Like the perfect example of the surprise coming back and winning. When John Cena came back at the Madison Square Garden Royal Rumble, no one knew he was coming back because everyone knew he was coming back in like 5-6 months after that. Comes back in number 30, wins the Rumble. No one was pissed.
The crowd was on their feet because, that was just a matter of reaction, I think. Because, again, emotionally, you have to be emotionally tied to it, Because, especially now, fans are pretty smart. They're not dumb. They're not completely. They're not gonna say, "Oh, did they really burn him? Did they really bury him in a casket?" Everybody knows, that what's going on. Really, they know that there's something going on there. There's
Not
always
even that. It's just the fact with the dirt sheets and the internet, everyone knows what's happening way before it even actually happens.
The times change, the fans change. The mentality changes to the point where they can't insult our intelligence anymore. Because they know that okay, we're predicting every single move now. Whether it's the gimmick, whether it's the storyline, they know that what we're gonna do we're probably looking at that saying, okay, this is gonna happen. This is probably how it's gonna go. Okay, and what ends up happening probably something turns out and we say, oh, that's exactly what we're thinking. And we just say, oh wow, that's not shocking. That's not just saying, oh wow, oh I knew that was gonna happen, but. What can we say,
Like, the only thing that people probably didn't really expect was Sheamus winning the Money in the Bank. A lot of people thought he would, but everyone probably would have put their money on Reigns winning.
True. The way that they had booked that, it was kind of predictable in the way that they did it. It kind of looked like, we already know who's going to win. But then, the way that they had the matches, the way they were building them up, it kind of changed it. Because, it changed people's perspective, or, their perception on how, who's going to win, what was going to happen, and all that. We're almost at that mark. We're about to run out of time. What I want to do is I want to go through, I'm going to play a game with you guys. I'm going to throw out a name. Hal, you know what? How about this? I'll give you a better one. All three of us will throw out a name. We'll talk about best or worst, and we'll talk briefly about why. So we'll start with Rich. What do you think? Pick one name, and we'll do like word association. How's that?
All right. Well, I'm not sure if you'll be familiar with this person's original gimmick. I know Nick will, but because I know you started watching wrestling kind of later on.
Yep.
But you might have heard of this one. Sparkplug Holly, also known as Bob Holly.
Yep.
He was with Billy Gunn, right?
Mm-hmm.
Hardcore.
But Nick, you remember how horrible the Sparkplug gimmick was, right?
Yeah, that was essentially a mid-90s WWE, just a lot of cartoon
Wrong
stuff.
place, wrong time.
Yeah, but, luckily he evolved with the Attitude Era and got repackaged.
Which I was happy.
The bleach blonde hair, was just perfect, and he had Crash with him. It made for something a lot more entertaining.
Sure.
So?
My name, Goldberg.
The original 5 Moves of Doom.
I don't even think it was 5. I think it might have been like 3.5.
I think just concrete bullshit. Because the way that they put him out, he kicked ass, left the ring, done. That's it. I understand he was, really popular. He was pretty cool. He was like this breakout star. He was a new guy. But there was always...
He was like a poor man's Stone Cold.
Yeah, he looked like, they put tights on him. He looked like a wrestler from the 80s that's screaming for attention. It's like, I need some help. But it's like, come on, man.
Nick?
What's your pick?
Al Snow.
Old school.
Underused.
Think so?
Yeah.
I mean, let's break down ECW. You know, how would you rate? You know, how would you see his, his gimmick? And do you think it had an effect on him?
Well, being the fact I actually saw him in the original ECW, he was amazing in the original ECW.
True.
Once it was the whole flip over ECW, WCW versus WWF, that's what killed him.
Mm-hmm. I mean, we could classify him as saying he was, in WCW. I mean, in that angle probably. But how about WWE? Al Snow.
That's where they fucked up his whole character.
It was a fixture of the Attitude Era because it was able to push the sexual innuendo.
I mean, yeah, they had the, the meat, the head. That was pretty cool, But I mean,
they partnered him with Steve Blackman, who wore a giant piece of cheese on his head.
It was kind of funny though.
It was, but growing up watching ECW and him being one of the top names there, that just like, what the hell?
They kind of mocked him in a way, I think. I mean, like, the way they had him as a trainer on Tough Enough. They made him something, like that, and then he got released. And now he's in TNA, doing their boot camp thing and trying to make something out of that. But, I mean, yeah. I mean, we've seen all these gimmicks, and, I mean, we can all agree that...
And me and Nick have seen the worst of the worst in the 90s.
Yeah.
They had a garbage man. They had a dentist. They had a tax collector. They had a professor. They had a repo man.
Hey,
me and Nick have seen the worst of the worst.
Well, you've seen it recently too. I mean, you've seen Simon Dean. Remember that guy, the fitness guru and shit? That was fucking annoying. We had a zombie. I don't know where that came from. That was from.
That's because they were on Sci-Fi.
Yep. I mean, we had what is it? We had
the Shockmaster.
Yeah, we had vampires. We had Shockmaster.
But we had a good vampire in Gangrel.
Yeah, but then what about later on, 2006 ECW? Kevin Thorne, Ariel. I mean,
hey, Charlie Martinez is great.
Charlie Martinez is great, yes, but the gimmick that they gave them was, what is this, Twilight? Like, this is Twilight in flashback, basically, foreshadowing that ass. But I mean, what else? If you think about, what else is there? As of recent, there was something. Oh yeah, the talk show host that talked about Kobe Bryant.
Oh, what's his name?
Abraham Washington, remember?
There you go.
The two presidents' names merged together. That was what the hell, like, come on. Who else? I mean, we had a whole bunch of, we had the loudmouth, Mr. Kennedy, MVP, the big shot, which was always there, aristocrats, you can name all of them.
There's so many that you can name that were horrible, so many that you can name that were great.
I think it's just a testament that WWE, I think their mentality has changed over the years, where they were like, they're probably, they were strategizing on how to book people. So they're thinking that, okay, hey, let's just have this guy, be, let's just make play this character, let him play this character. But most of them were probably based on daily life things that people do, like I think they were trying to relate to us in a way, They were just trying to say, hey.
And they had a barber.
I mean, they're trying to insult us, basically. I mean, I think people felt insulted. Like, they were saying, okay, there's not really a guy that's really like that. That's 24/7 about this and that, about collecting garbage, or about being a vampire, or being about, being this, being flamboyant, being a movie star, being et cetera, et cetera. We kind of looked at it and we were smart enough to say, okay, you guys just said that, wrestling isn't real. So why keep insulting us further, We're not. And then, people have that emotion of, I mean, you guys probably run this every single day. When people look up to you and say, oh, you still follow wrestling? Wrestling's fake. What do you say to them? You say, that's probably a product of that. Worst gimmicks, that's probably why, people look at that and say, they don't want that attention for wrestling. They say, oh,
Yeah.
wrestling is just.
And the thing is, when someone says that to you, oh, you still watch wrestling, you know it's fake. You ask them, oh, what do you watch? And they say this show, this show, this show. Okay, that's fake also.
Yeah, I watch Orange is Black. I watch what you call it, Game of Thrones. Hey, that's not real either, okay? And they just they just wrestlers, but it's not the same. Wrestling is scripted and stuff.
So is your show.
Exactly. Movies, same thing.
Same thing. I mean, movies are like that. Basically, these are just a figment of our entertainment. So that we can step away, look at certain things, and say and the next day come on and by the cooler, or for us, you and me, Rich, in the break room, and say, oh, yo, this happened. Oh, that happened. That's what people really want. Something that can connect us all.
Like the kid in pharmacy, I forgot his name. He heard us talking about it. He's like, oh, that shit is fake, right?
I just straight up, man. It just pissed me off sometimes where I just go, all right, you know what? I'm not even gonna bother saying this kid. There's no reason to. But I mean, we've seen all the gimmicks. Best, worst.
We've seen the best of the best. We've seen the worst of the worst.
But one thing that always stays the same is that it puts an impact on the way people think. About certain people. But I mean, again, that's also another driving factor as to why it builds certain storylines, crumbles certain storylines, does certain things to people, puts a different impact on the business and everything. But I mean, would you guys agree that gimmicks are dead?
No.
Like we said before, NXT is filled with gimmicks.
I mean, especially now, we're not really, it's not really, an era where we are talking about, about gimmicks anymore. We're not talking about the guy that's extremely into that or extremely into that. I think now it's just like a figment of it. Now it's just, people just going ahead and, they embody something, but they just have an idea of it. Because if you think about it, the way that they've been booking now, before it was scripts. Now what do? Now it's just bullet points. They tell them, okay, you gotta do this. Give us your best. But
now it's also like the promos. Now it's like a promo era now.
Indeed, I think it is. I mean, if you've seen like with CM Punk, he had that whole era. They gave him the mic, and I think that's where it started. Where they said, hey, these guys really have something. We should just, we shouldn't really, tell them, okay, what exactly to say, word for word. We should actually just go on and give them an opportunity to do what they want to do.
Bray Wyatt is the best talker right now.
He is self-made, and I think that's great. That's fantastic right there.
Like, you're really good on the mic when Triple H tells you, just write out a promo, hand it to me, I'll tell you what to take out, and that's it. And then you just go.
Indeed. I mean, we'll have to see, as far as what, goes on in the future. If WWE will continue to incorporate this, see what they can do. But we'll have to see. Guys, so it's that time. We'll see you off.
Just remember, check out ProWrestlingOpinion.com for your latest wrestling writing material.
And if you guys check out the site regularly and you want to check out some past episodes of the RSN podcast, we're also featured, we also featured on the site. Just go under extras, you'll find the RSN podcast, you'll find all of our past episodes.
What other extras do you have there also?
We also feature Booking the Territory podcast, which comes out every Friday. Features exclusive superstar interviews. Check them out. And then we also have our friends at Bonesaw Productions, who come out with Fans Perspective, which is essentially a Sports Center-esque wrestling-related talk show with various topics. Comes out every other Friday. You can check out all the episodes on there. And, just keep checking things out because we got a lot of good stuff coming out.
You can check us out on Facebook. You can check us out on YouTube. Any future topics, just leave a comment. Maybe your topic will get featured in the future podcast.
Indeed. So signing out. See you guys later.
Have a nice night.